guys, let's talk about laughter in its deepest spiritual context. It's a fascinating topic, for sure. And I want to dedicate this to Clarence Clark. Clarence, I hope these words can offer some clarity, can afford you with a greater knowledge, a greater depth on this really interesting topic, and can give you maybe some inspiration as you move forward with your own obstacles and hurdles in your own life. I know a lot of people are going through some tough times. I get emails on Facebook all the time, and I think this is very poignant to speak about this. So we're talking about the spiritual essence of laughter. So the first thing we should do is come up with a working definition of what is laughter, right? In the spiritual sense, and the practical sense. Laughter is if you think about it, laughter is the transition, right? The sharp transition of one extreme to the other, right? That juxtaposition where one thing is leading in one direction and it somehow turns, right, quickly in the other direction. And unexpectedly, and this evokes laughter, right? So that's our working definition. In Hebrew, we have a saying, V'tischak le'yom acharon, which means a woman of greatness shall laugh on her last day. And this makes me think of my grandmother, Bella Wall. And she was great. Make no mistake about it. And like all great women, she always laughed. She always found a reason to laugh, and not a superficial laughter. She always, laughed from her heart, no matter what the situation was, no matter how much pain she was in. She always found a reason to laugh at it. Now this was really interesting to me and to a lot of other people too. Like how she could laugh, and the reason she could laugh is. V'tischak le'yom acharon. See, my grandmother traveled with the innate, intuitive, spiritual understanding that no matter how dire things were, no matter how things appeared on the surface, that there was going to be a sharp transition, and that no matter how much pain she was in, that there was hope and redemption and joy waiting on the other side. And so she wasn't fooled by what was going on in this light and magic show called life. She wasn't fooled in the least. V'tischak le'yom acharon. Let's talk about the birth process for a second here. Baby's inside the womb. It's submerged in water. Its circulation is bypassed. It does not have circulation like we do. So conventional circulation is bypassed. There isn't the direct blood flow that we have. Lungs are closed essentially, right? So it's living in an environment and conditions that are antithetical to the conditions waiting outside. So how could it? It's as it travels out to the world, it's on its way to a sure death. And if you've ever held a baby for the first few seconds, it essentially, doctors will tell you in medical terms, for the first second or two, the baby dies. It turns blue, it turns purple, lungs collapse, but miraculously, and I don't know how an agnostic or an atheist can look at the birth process and still maintain their beliefs. They really need their head read. But miraculously and with inexplicable precision, the lungs open, circulation changes, and the baby somehow takes its first breath and is fully adapted to its new environment. So it's on its way to a sure death, and what happens is, a quick transition into a new realm full of infinite possibilities that the baby could never have imagined. And so this is the first horizon, which is portentous and revealing of horizons to come when you really think about it. So, v'tischach layom acharon. The Jewish people are all about the spiritual essence of laughter. The first Jewish child, Yitzchak, his name means, and you shall laugh. You remember that Abraham and Sarah, they laughed. When God told them you're going to have a child, they laughed uproariously because they were too old. Sarah was barren. She didn't even have a womb. This was impossible, and they laughed at such an impossible notion. Yet, the impossible, Isaac was born, and the Jewish nation essentially was born. We're all about the impossible. And we know that if it can be conjured in our minds, then it can be accomplished, right? Another point of interest, just before I go here, is that it's a commandment for a Jew not to laugh with true abandon in this world, and we don't. We don't. We laugh from our hearts, but we never laugh with true abandon because we can't. As long as there's one person suffering, we can't. There's another saying in Hebrew, and then our mouths will be filled with laughter, and the Hebrew eludes me right now, but it's another very powerful phrase, and then our mouths should be filled with laughter, so we don't laugh with abandon in this world, because we know that the true laughter will come in the world to come, and the realm to come, when the transition happens, and there is only joy and redemption and laughter on the other side. But while we're in this world right now and we're subject to pain and suffering and to witness the pain and suffering of others, we never laugh with full abandon. So I thank you for listening. Hope these insights helped. And remember, for those I know, I get Facebook messages, and I know there's a lot of people going through difficult times. Remember that every crisis leads to a rebirth. It's irrefutable. It's a law of nature. Okay, and God never gives you more than you can endure. So know that you're strong enough to get through whatever you're going through. A test is not given that way, where it's something that you can't handle. It's not given that way. So remember that and understand that things are not the way they appear to be. Thank you so much for listening.